Hi, this is Shane Starr, and this is like take 3 because I keep getting interrupted. But I am doing my third video in a series of 8 videos with the 48 laws of power and the 8 cognitive functions. Today we are doing extroverted thinking, otherwise known as TE. And we're going to be looking at 4 laws that correspond with this cognitive function. Hopefully I'm not interrupted this time. I'm sitting at my desk at work on a kind of gray Sunday, and I'm going to go fast before I get interrupted again. But let's get right into it. So TE is something we associate with a lot of business leaders. And this book, 48 Laws of Power, it applies to both personal and business matters. But when we think of power, we think of success. And where I live, at least, success in general usually has to do with corporate success or work success. So these laws, when we go over them, think of personal dealings, but think of, moving up at work. And that's the way I look at it anyway. So let's go. First law that's applicable to extroverted thinking that I found in here is Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. If you need to turn to an ally for help, don't bother to remind him of your past assistance and good deeds. He'll find a way to ignore you. Instead, uncover something in your request or in your alliance that will benefit him. He'll respond enthusiastically when he sees something to be gained for himself. Now, I think that other types can do well with this, but I noticed that ESTJs and ENTJs in both socionics and MBTI are masters at this. You never hear them ask for mercy or gratitude or anything like that. If they ask you to do something, it's either because they expect you to do it as part of your own duty to them, or if it's not, they'll have something in it for you. Like, Shane, how would you like to have a day of overtime? Are you busy next Tuesday? It's like, oh, hell yeah, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, hey, could you really help us out? We're down some people, they called out or whatever. It's like, no, they'll frame it in such a way where I say yes without getting, soft or goofy like that. I've seen people try, like in personal dealings, borrowing money and stuff, trying to remind people, remember when I did this for you? And all it does is inspire just contempt on the other person. You can tell they're just like, when you're asking to borrow money. But if you make it worth their while, it's like, hey, I forgot my wallet. Give me $10. I'll throw an extra 5 on top of it when we get back. Like maybe that's over the top, but I've done stuff like that, and I always get what I want that way. It doesn't have to be disingenuous or tricky in any way. Just make it worthwhile for the other person and frame it in that way, and you're much more likely, then you're negotiating instead of begging, right? It's a lot better. Okay, moving on. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. This is something I've utterly failed at. I never crush my enemy totally. I always leave, whether it's a personal argument, whether it's a breakup with someone, whether it's a fist fight, going all the way back to grade school, I always let them up too soon. It's like, have you had enough? Yeah, okay, let's shake hands, and then they try to hit me. It's like, okay, here we go again. Have to beat them down a second time or a third time, even in my case. And then after that, because I let them off the hook, a month later, they're like, hey, I'm stronger now. I want another shot at this guy. Or, he got lucky last time. Let's see what happens now. I've been in so many fights, and luckily I haven't lost any. I wouldn't be doing this publicly if I had. Someone could come out and say, hey, what about that one time? But there is no one time. Anyway, enough bragging on my part. But a big mistake I've made, and a lot of my fights is I let the person up too soon. It's like I have them, I completely have them at, they're in my mercy. I could do whatever I want with them, and then I let them up. And then instead of appreciating that I didn't pound them worse, they try to fight me. And then I really have to get pissed and beat them down worse. The same thing happens in business with breakups. You want to be nice. You want to leave room for hope, even if it's doubtful. And they come back and burn you for it. And it's never worth it. TE leads, on the other hand, true TE leads, this is maybe a good test for if you're a TE lead or not. They crush their enemy totally. They don't play games like, SE types will tend to do, like they're winning, so they'll start showboating a little bit and then get popped or something. TE leads don't play. They don't fool around. They're a little more serious. When they want someone out of their office or out of their personal life or knocked out, they see it through from start to finish. They don't mess around. They don't leave any room for questions or second guessing. They're decisive, and they crush their enemy totally. Not only do they not want another shot, they see them coming and they're like trying to hide because they don't want to get it a second time, and it's a cruel world out there, but whether it's in personal dealings, business matters, or a real physical fight, we would do well to follow the TE leads and crush our enemies totally. And then you can make friends with them after that if you want, but you have to crush them first, as bad as that sounds. Okay, moving on. Law 34. What do we have here? Okay, be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. The way you carry yourself will often determine how you're treated. In the long run, appearing vulgar or common will make people disrespect you. For a king respects himself and inspires the same sentiment in others. By acting regally and confident of your powers, you make yourself seem destined to wear a crown. And I think that's true. Again, TE leads, they don't act vulgar, like SE leads in contrast, because a lot of people, socionics people say what you're saying sounds more like SE than TE. I respectfully disagree. I would say SE tends to play a little bit more. TEs don't. And what TE leads will do is they're just really serious people who they don't joke as much, they don't play around as much, and because of this serious nature, people don't mess with them that much either. And think about it, most supervisors, most CEOs, most of them are TE leads, and that's because they just act like a leader. And you can see it even when people are young. You can tell the kid who's going to be a leader someday, own his own business or move up really high in a company. And it's because they have this serious, this royal thing, I think I have a little tinge of that in the way I dress and the way I carry myself professionally, but not like these guys. Like these guys have it to a T, and we would all do well to incorporate a little bit more royalty in our act than maybe we currently do. Okay, moving on to Law 45. Now, this could be an SI law, but SI people don't preach, period. So I moved it to TE, and that is preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Everyone understands the need for change in the abstract, but day-to-day level, people are creatures of habit. Too much innovation is traumatic and it will lead to revolt. TE leads are excellent at that. They talk about making changes, and they will make a few changes, but they don't make radical turnarounds from the top on down to the bottom. They make adjustments. They might talk about what they're going to do, but then they implement it in a series of steps. And I think that is a good way to be. I've seen so many people mistakenly come into a business or a relationship or a social group, and it doesn't matter how true the need for change is. When they actually make radical changes, no one appreciates it. Now, if they do make a radical change, TE people will clean house. They'll fire everyone, so the people there won't know that it was a radical change. They're just coming in on the ground floor, and that's how the TEs work it. If they do need radical change, they'll start all over. They'll burn the whole thing down to rebuild something new. Otherwise, they'll preach the need for change and reform a little tiny bit at a time. And I think that's successful in not only business, but in personal relationships, household habits, things of that nature. Even when you and your partner agree to make a change in some area, I can't tell you how many times I've blown it this way. It's like, yeah, we agreed to make these 3 changes, A, B, and C, so this is what I'm doing, and it's just like too much for the other person. Like they agreed with me conceptually, theoretically, but then in practice, it's like, whoa, dude, let's ease into this and not just like turn the world upside down kind of thing. So that concludes our lesson for TE. I would say that little part about crush your enemy totally, I never did read the official description. It says, all great leaders since Moses have known that a feared enemy must be crushed totally. Sometimes they have to learn this, like me, the hard way. If one ember is left alight, no matter how dimly it smolders, a fire will eventually break out. More is lost through stopping halfway than through total annihilation. The enemy otherwise will recover and will seek revenge. Crush him, not only in body, but in spirit. So, not to go over something we already went over, but I think that is probably the most important of all the TE lessons is you can't leave room for people to come back at you. If it's best not to fight, but if you have to fight, whether it's a physical fight, a cultural fight, a corporate human resources office kind of fight, you have to crush your enemy totally. Don't be half-assed about it, or you might lose. Okay? So that's all I have for today. Tomorrow will be Introverted Thinking, TI, and for now, peace out.